Along the southern shoreline of Long Island, where cars move steadily down a narrow stretch of asphalt and tall beach grass bends under the Atlantic wind, there is a road that appears completely ordinary. No warning signs, no flashing lights, no visible reminder that this quiet strip of highway would become the center of one of the most complex criminal investigations in modern New York history. Ocean Parkway looks like nothing more than a coastal route leading to the beach, but beneath that calm surface, layers of events were quietly accumulating for years without forming a complete picture. How can an open, public place hide secrets for more than 2 decades? And how did modern technology revive investigative leads from a time when digital tracking was far less precise than it is today? Before we break down this case step by step, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future investigations where we revisit cases that took years before the truth began to surface. When authorities began identifying victims through DNA analysis and dental records, the process was neither fast nor simple. Some of the remains discovered had been there for years. Others corresponded to missing persons reports that had long since gone cold. At the time those women disappeared, there was no clear connection linking their cases. No shared location mentioned in the original reports. No obvious indication that a single individual might be responsible. Each disappearance seemed isolated. Each file stood on its own, until geographers brought them together. The name Gilgo Beach began appearing repeatedly in news reports. Public attention intensified. Questions multiplied. How many victims were there in total? How long had the remains gone unnoticed? Could this quiet stretch of road have been the dumping ground for a series that spanned years? In early 2011, authorities expanded the search along Ocean Parkway. The focus was no longer confined to one discovery site. Search teams extended operations east and west, combing through dunes and dense vegetation with additional personnel, specialized equipment, and trained cadaver dogs. In March and April of that same year, additional human remains were discovered. Some were located farther from the initial site. Some appeared to date back even earlier than the first 4 identified victims. The timeline grew more complicated. It was no longer clear whether all the cases were connected to the same period or even the same person. Investigators reopened missing persons files dating back to the late 1990s. They revisited old communication patterns and analyzed historical cell tower records. In the early 2000s, cell phone tracking lacked the pinpoint accuracy we're accustomed to today. It could not provide exact coordinates, but it could establish general geographic ranges. When those ranges were mapped carefully, overlapping patterns began to emerge. Some victims had arranged meetings with unknown individuals before disappearing. Phone activity suddenly stopped. Devices powered off within geographic proximity to Ocean Parkway. Geography became a crucial element of the investigation. Ocean Parkway offers quick access from populated areas of Long Island and New York City, yet remains relatively isolated, especially late at night. The dunes and thick vegetation provide natural concealment. Surveillance cameras are sparse along long stretches of the road. There is little reason for passing drivers to stop. Was the location chosen randomly? Or did someone familiar with the area understand precisely how effective it would be for concealment? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, because this question has sparked extensive debate among observers and analysts. Years passed without a dramatic public breakthrough. Leadership within law enforcement agencies changed. Task forces were reorganized. Families of the victims voiced frustration over the pace of progress. Yet behind the scenes, analytical work continued. Between 2012 and 2019, investigators reviewed vehicle registration records from geographic areas connected to the timeframes of the disappearances. Witness statements mentioning specific vehicle descriptions were re-examined and cross-referenced against expanded databases. Old communication data was reprocessed using more advanced analytical software, capable of identifying connections that earlier systems might have missed. The attention turned to the use of burner phones devices, purchased temporarily and then discarded. Activation dates were compared to disappearance dates. Some phones showed activity within cell tower ranges near the locations tied to multiple victims, only to go silent shortly afterward. As technology evolved, so did the ability to reinterpret old evidence. Data that once seemed unrelated began forming patterns when analyzed across extended time layers. A particular mobile device appeared within geographic proximity to multiple disappearance sites during similar time periods. Alone, this did not constitute definitive proof, but as part of a broader mosaic, it added weight. In 2020, a new task force was formed specifically to re-examine every piece of evidence from the beginning. It included local police, state authorities, and federal agencies. The mission was clear: reassess everything without prior assumptions. Using the most current forensic and digital tools available, biological evidence preserved since 2010 was retested using advanced forensic techniques. Hair samples and trace materials were subjected to more sensitive forms of DNA analysis. Mitochondrial DNA testing, once of limited practical value, had become far more refined. The careful preservation of evidence over the years proved critical. Without strict documentation and storage protocols, these later advances would have been impossible to apply. The breakthrough did not arrive in a dramatic, cinematic moment. It was gradually a result of cumulative analysis, reassessment, and patient reconstruction. In July 2023, authorities announced the arrest of a suspect in connection with several of the victims discovered in 2010. The announcement followed extensive review of communication records, digital activity archives, and modern DNA analysis techniques, but the arrest did not close the case. Some of the remains discovered along Ocean Parkway have not been formally linked to the same individual. The investigation continues in parallel with ongoing legal proceedings. As the case moved into the courtroom, the focus shifted. It was no longer solely about discovering evidence, but about presenting it cohesively. Prosecutors constructed a timeline stretching from the late 1990s into the 2020s. Phone movements, vehicle records, SIM card purchases, archived digital activity. Each element placed carefully along a chronological framework intended to demonstrate continuity. The defense challenged the strength of these connections, arguing that no single piece of evidence conclusively proves guilt on its own. Prosecutors emphasized accumulation, that while individual elements may appear circumstantial, together they form a consistent pattern. This raises a broader question. Can a series of circumstantial elements, when combined, carry more weight than one direct piece of evidence? It's a debate that extends far beyond this case and into the heart of modern digital-era prosecutions. The investigation also prompted institutional reflection. Procedures for handling missing persons cases were reviewed. Interagency cooperation was strengthened. Data-sharing mechanisms across jurisdictions were re-evaluated. The case became a powerful example of how so-called cold cases can be reopened and potentially solved years or even decades later, when technology catches up with preserved evidence. If you value in-depth documentary storytelling that goes beyond headlines and carefully reconstructs complex investigations, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our Voices of Crime. Your support helps us continue exploring cases that took years before the truth began to surface. Today, Ocean Parkway looks unchanged. Wind moves across the dunes. Traffic flows steadily. Beachgoers return every summer. There is nothing visible to indicate what remained hidden there for so long. Yet the name of that road is now permanently linked to a criminal file that spans more than 20 years, a file shaped by time, patience, and technological evolution. Court proceedings are ongoing. Evidence is being examined. Timelines are being reconstructed. Connections between old and new data are still under scrutiny. Ocean Parkway carries no sign explaining its history, but court records and forensic reports preserve the details with precision. What began as isolated missing persons reports evolved into a long-term investigation that demonstrates how time can obscure truth, but also how persistence and technological advancement can slowly bring it back into focus. Thank you for following this documentary account. If you found this content informative, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Voices of Crime. Leave a comment with your thoughts, and you can watch another Voices of Crime video to explore other cases that took years before the truth began to emerge.